there is a lot of interest on the topic. We expanded it to an hour and a half. The only limitation we have in this case is that 1 o'clock sharp, we will have to transition to the full talk. And therefore, we need to be a bit more mindful of the time. Now, the clinic has its own dynamics, and the facilitator Mirella will explain to us how the session will run. So one of the things that we've done in this meeting is to have one focal person that would actually guide us, introduce the subject, and tell us how we are going to deal with the topic. So in this case, it is Mirella Hernani, who is a regional M&E specialist for Latin America and the Caribbean region. And the speaker is, again, Gonzalo, who we heard from just a few minutes ago. And the topic is policy evaluations and reviews. The reason why this is of special interest for Latin American and Caribbean, but also other upper middle income country regions, is because we realize in UNICEF that we are more now engaging in what we call strategic evaluations, that, for example, already explained some of these the characteristics whereby we are trying to influence public policies and government-owned budgets and programs, and less so talking about UNICEF-owned projects and activities. Therefore, let me introduce to you Mirella,
you have
who can
both
explain
presentations
much better
open.
than me how we'll,
that one open. Can you open the other one? Okay. And then can I ask you to put it first?
Yeah, there is so much
Can
saying actually.
yeah, and the other one first, and then immediately we change to the. Do you go through the full first? It's only one slide.
So a few
Or
points
otherwise we should
about
do
country
it.
evaluation. Our region, of course, Latin America and the Caribbean, is going out through different political processes, and for us, country-led, it's a very important topic. We have in the region, most of our evaluations are run with the government, actually. We don't do evaluations, probably more than 80% of our evaluations are done with the government, and therefore we are kind of familiar with this, but I think there is a lot of experience in the region from our governments that we need to learn. So we're going to have the sort of like a lecture approach at the moment. Gonzalo is going to go through a presentation. We're going to have questions and answers, and then we are going to have, if time allows, some exercise that Gonzalo has there. So over to you.
Thank you very much, Mireya. Thank you very much, George, again. Thank you very much for you, all that you're here. Thank you to Soli that we were going to be on this same panel, but now he's going to come later, and Natalia as well. So we can have a full day with this process. So you mentioned that we had 1 hour and a half. Now we have 1 hour only, which means that we thought yesterday perhaps of having an exercise. We may not have that exercise at the end because of the time, but I just want to ask you. I had mentioned. I mean, imagine that we had this exercise at the end. We would have some groups, like for 3 people in each, and for different groups, we will try for you to answer these questions. Oh? How would you design an M&E system for children? Putting attention that the M part is there, the monitoring and evaluation system. If I ask you, what would you do in that country where you are working, in your region? What would you do if you were the only person to design the whole system? What would you put it there? What would be, another question, potential. What would be the shape of this M system? Why do you put different tools in there? Why these tools and not the other one? What would be the first step if someone says, well, we need to have a new or a brand new M&E system in Ghana, in Fiji Islands, what would you do as the first step? What would you do? How would you convince government officials about a design evaluation of a new program? How have you detected the main evaluation challenges in your country? What would be the first evaluation you suggest for the country officials? So imagine there's no evaluation, there's no country-led evaluation in your country. What would be the first one you produce? For instance, our friend from Sri Lanka, he's coming perhaps later. He's over there. Say, well, the government hasn't done any evaluation. What would you suggest to the government? But because perhaps the government, if you have an evaluation policy, then the government says, well, we need to produce so many evaluations that the first step, produce so many at the same time is difficult. Well, if you decided to have only one, the first one, what would be your suggestion? How would you start a country's program inventory for children? How would you assess your country's evaluation performance? How would you improve your country's evaluation system? What would you do? What would you ask the government to do on the first steps? And before evaluations, does your country need more basic information for decision making, which were part of the issues that were raised before? So can we just move to the main? So what we'll do now is I would like to walk with you about various issues, and I give you as a main example Mexico, but I can use other countries of what happened and what were the challenges and the results, and then the challenges again of having an ongoing monitoring and evaluation system in any country, for example Mexico, for example Colombia, for example Thailand. So let me start with this idea, which is a very logical and a very we've seen that before, that evaluation is part of the cycle of public policy, ideally. So ideally, we have the following. If we were planning our sectorial policy, if we were planning to do something to improve people's life, children's life in a new government, ideally we would do this. We say, well, let's measure and identify the social challenges and the size of the poverty. Is it poverty really big? Is it bigger in the south or in the north? So we should measure at the beginning the size of the problem. The second step would be trying to analyze why that problem has been increasing over the past 10 years. Why unemployment has been increasing over the past 10 years. Why obesity has increased over the past 10 years. Why child mortality hasn't dropped as we wanted over the past 10 years. So we try to analyze what do we think are the problems leading to that problem we measured before. And then with those elements, we'll try to design a program or a policy. Ideally, that would be the case, that we'll have time to do the previous elements, the previous steps, and then say, well, yes, the size of poverty is this, the problem in the south of the country is this one, the problem in rural areas is this one, and therefore we decide to have this specific program or this specific policy. Then we assign a budget, and we have the implementation process. It sounds very easy, it's not that easy, but we have the implementation process, and then it comes the monitoring and evaluation process in this logic mode, let's say. And that element, the evaluation and the monitoring part, play important roles here. Important. One, we have to see almost every month, almost every semester, if the implementation we thought is the one that is actually happening in the field. And this is very important because I've seen recently more and more people from within countries, implementators, from government or from civil society, that they think that that specific evidence to show if the implementation is working or not is so crucial for the future of that program. I tell you that because it is true that we are happy from the evaluation community that this year's Nobel Prize on Economics was to evaluators. We are happy because of that. I keep saying to my government, well, evaluation is important because there's prize level on that. I don't deal with the if those specific techniques are the best. But I can tell you, we can tell that frankly. If we only rely on impact evaluations produced in a rigorous way, then sometimes we miss what is happening in the short run, as Soli was saying. So this element of the monitoring part, this element of trying to have evidence of what is going on with implementation is important. And of course it is important as well, trying to identify in the longer run, in the medium term, if that program, if that idea that we had is actually solving the problem we found at the beginning. Is it really true that because of that program, obesity is going down? Is there an impact between what we do and what we're trying to do? So, in this very simple model, it is quite clear then that the monitoring and the evaluation process together make a very important system as a whole, because we have to combine both somehow in order to have reliable evidence along the whole process. And what do we want that for? I mean, and this is a very important message always from the evaluation committee, but always a huge challenge. At the end of the day, if we believe on this, on what is in here, there are at least two uses of that process, of the evaluation and monitoring use. It's we need to learn, and therefore we need to improve. We are learning, and we know that what we thought on the implementation process is not working, because here on my desk in Mexico City, on the 8th floor in my office, I thought that the program should do this and this and that, and that the people should go to various places to get the benefit. I was on the 8th floor of an important office. And perhaps in the field, that doesn't work. We really would like to learn as soon as possible if what we thought in an important office is actually happening on the field when we start the new program, when we are now implementing it and we are working on that. So we have to learn, and of course we have to learn not only the implementation process, we have to learn if that idea actually was a good idea. Are we going to reduce obesity through sushi plates? Well, one day I said, because I like sushi plates, so I thought it was a good idea. But is it actually a good idea that through sushi we're going to reduce obesity? Well, we have to measure that. So we are learning at the end of the day. I mean, whenever we are, I wonder how many times you've been there, when you are in government and you are deciding how to reduce poverty, when you're deciding how to reduce inequality, when you're deciding to do something about how to improve children's lives, you have to come with ideas on public policy. And that is not an easy task. So sometimes our governments are really under fire, as Soli was saying, because they are not delivering. This time, sometimes there is a lot of corruption, and sometimes they are not doing things well. But a lot of times, things are not that easy. Therefore, the learning process is very important. So we evaluate to learn and improve. But at the same time, evaluation is about accountability. At the end of the day, most things that happen in government came from the pockets of the citizens, came from taxpayers, or came from donors. And both need to know if what the government is doing with the money is actually working. Therefore, we have an accountability part. So we evaluate to make accountable, to have accountable government. That's also another very important objective of that part of the planning process. However, both things at the same time, the learning and accountability, don't go together well all the time. There's a delicate balance of both, and you know that. If George is my boss and he's assessing my work of the past year, he'll come and say, well, you know, Gonzalo, during the past year, you did well here, and you did not well very here. So he's telling me in his office that an assessment and evaluation of my job in the previous year. If that is a reliable evaluation, I will listen to George and say, well, yes, George is actually quite right. I did well here, and I didn't do well here. Therefore, next year I'm going to improve. If George tells me exactly the same, with the same words, in front of 1,000 people, you did well here and you didn't well. So, George, why are you telling me in front of all these people? Oh, because of the accountability part. Yeah, George, but I mean, I feel a bit intimidated. How can we balance the accountability part and the learning part? And that's why we said before that the art of evaluation is there. And Natalia and Solly and you all who've been in evaluation, you know that that's a different balance. Another balance on this very important process of planning where M&E is there is that we have so many stakeholders there. Sometimes government want to learn something, sometimes it's the opposition parties who want to do something, sometimes it's citizens, sometimes it's donors. Therefore, how can we manage that evaluation and monitoring tool to all these people? And how, therefore, are we going to use different products in order to do that? Because the interest on evaluations is not only for the learning part, as Dennis was saying before. Sometimes countries, sometimes policymakers, sometimes stakeholders place a different emphasis on the evaluation process, which means that it is almost impossible then to have one single evaluation tool to solve all those problems in different situations. For instance, learning. The Chinese are getting really good on evaluation because they want to learn what is happening. They truly want to learn. Perhaps the accountability part is not that there, but the learning part is there. Therefore, what they produce is a lot of evaluations, trying to see what is happening in various places in China. That's an important thing. Political incentives. So sometimes you want to evaluate to show off. So, well, I want my citizens to know that what I did over the past 3 years in this program is very good. Because I want to be perhaps the next president of Mexico. So I need someone, just not me, I need someone external from me telling the others that this program is actually very good. So that's showing off. My friend of mine, the governor of Colima, a state in Mexico, actually did that. So I can give you an example later. Accountability. The main reason why we started with a full evaluation system in Mexico was only the accountability part from Congress. That was the main reason, as I said before. They were not that interested in the learning process and we have to improve policy makers. So they say, well, we need to show that the president is not doing well. Or if he's not doing well, when should we have to say that? So the accountability part was the main element in Mexico. The improving planning has been in the center of Colombia's evaluation system. The Colombian evaluation system is within the planning ministry. So they need to learn all the time. Improved management in Bush's administration was the main element of evaluation for that government. And in Chile, the evaluation started in the Ministry of Finance, in the Office of Budget, because they want to use the evaluation for the budget process. And of course, our friends in Canada who've been there for a long time, they are having a holistic view of evaluation. They've been doing that for a long time. They are important leaders in evaluation in all senses. But all these examples are telling us that despite the fact that in the logical framework, in the logical process, evaluation should be part of the planning process, then the emphasis changes from country to country, from government to government, from stakeholder to stakeholder. If we as UNICEF would like to place and put more emphasis on country-led evaluations, what shall we do with all these elements of balance? How can we change the way in we produce evaluations? And then we have the evaluation criteria. In our seminar in Egypt with Indran, like a week ago, the OECD presented us like the new criteria they are having. They have the relevance, the efficiency, the effectiveness, sustainability, impact, and a new one, coherence. Can we have all the criteria in one single evaluation? I don't think so. What I believe is that we need to have the whole criteria in the whole bunch of tools we have and we deliver in the country. So in sometimes one evaluation, one tool is about efficiency, which is fine. We have to make sure that that evaluation has that criteria very well. But perhaps that program specifically doesn't need the coherence part. What we really need, from my point of view, is that in our office in UNICEF in Latin America and Fiji, we be sure that we'll have all the criteria in all the tools we are using. And then we say, well, we have a system where all the criteria are met, but with different tools. Therefore, let me just insist that, let's underline, that getting only one type of evaluation is quite difficult to address all these issues. It cannot please all stakeholders. It cannot be on time. Then what can we do? Is it not that easy? This is a diagram that ideally in all regions or countries should be filled with different items inside. I would always like to put that the results should be in the middle. You have to think that everything we do, the evaluation, the operations, the implementation, the planning, is about results. Should be about results at least. And results to improve people's life. We may have another type of result. Some politicians want to win the next election, that's fine. We're talking about the results are better in terms of obesity, in terms of poverty, in terms of malnutrition, in terms of whatever. So results should be in the middle. And then we have all these boxes where I believe we have to feel somehow, and we cannot feel them at the same time. It will be very, very difficult to have, let's say, well, in Sri Lanka, sorry to use again your words, let's start with a full system tomorrow. That's not that easy. Let's start with the planning process, where data is so important. Sometimes one single but well-placed information piece may be more important than a full rigorous impact evaluation with ICTs. Let's see what happened to unemployment. Do we actually have unemployment figures? Do we have actually numbers on undernutrition? And of course, with the data comes this very important idea of having results indicators in every program. You know that. I've seen your log framework in your policy brief, which is very good looking at it, George. So in every program we have this indicator. I mean, ideally, once I was talking to Mr. Lando, who's been on evaluation, on rigorous evaluation for a long time, and he says, if we only had a magic tool that gives us a very good results indicator as the monitoring framework for all programs, it will be just a beauty, because then it means that we are getting the way to measure results in a program. We may have or not an impact evaluation, but if we get the results indicator, we are on the other side. Still, in many governments, you know that, the main results indicator is budget spent. How much did you spend? 100%, well done. Are we improving children's lives? I don't know, but the whole money I just spent it. Imagine that, going back to the private sector, imagine that you tell the main stakeholders in your company, you're the manager, and tell them, you know, I have a very good news for you. I spent the whole budget. What? What about utility? I don't know. I spent the whole thing. It's very similar here. Are we making infant mortality decrease? I don't know, but I spent the whole thing. Therefore, trying to get that indicator has been one of the most important efforts we've made in Mexico over the past 15 years. We are not there. There are results indicators that they are not very good, but the effort is worth. Then we may have an evaluation plan where we have evaluation type 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, meaning that ideally in every year we may have a planning of what type of evaluations are the best for that program on that moment. So together, the evaluation results and the indicators and the data would have a very nice set of evidence. We shouldn't stop there. We shouldn't stop there. The main issue today and tomorrow is decision making. If we have the evaluations and the data and the indicators, are we using them for decision making? Not necessarily. We may have them as a requisite, we may have it as a bureaucratic process, but we may not use them. Using the evidence is so difficult, even for myself, even for yourself. I'm an evaluator, and I've been listening that having fried chips is not very good for my health. They're so good. I keep eating them. But the evidence is there, yes, but my behavior is difficult to change. So if our behavior is difficult to change, the politician's behavior is even more difficult. How can we do that? Therefore, how are we going to describe the use of the evidence process? There are two opposite options and various in the middle. A, we would like the first option of decision making and using evaluation is everything that is said by the evaluators should be mandatory for government. That's the very first one. And the opposite is, I produce the evidence, and then if they want to read it, that's fine. In Mexico, at least, there was a huge discussion on the first issue. The evaluation recommendations should be mandatory for government. From my point of view, big mistake. Because then you're saying that the evaluators will be the ones running the country. So the president should do what the evaluators say. And in Mexico and in many countries, people elected presidents, not the evaluation process. Therefore, placing the evaluation with that burden should be too much. So how can we say that we are using that? And therefore, we should have somehow a decision-making process or mechanism, or various ways of mechanism, in which at least we know that those who decided something important, or something not that important, but part of the evolution, part of the social policy, they use that information from this process to take that into account. Perhaps they decided something differently. This precise, perhaps the evaluation said you have to increase the price or you have to reduce the price, whatever, and perhaps because of political reasons, the decision was a different one. Perhaps the decision was the one your advisor from the party told you. That's fine, but at least you read and listened and you were aware that the evaluation says something differently. In that way, from my point of view, the evaluation decision process is there, and the evaluation is playing a role. Of course, the difficult part is how do you measure that? At the very beginning, in Coneval, which is the independent evaluation office in Mexico, which started 13 years ago, our main results indicator in our law frame was the number of evaluations done during the year in various sectors. That was our main indicator. Number of evaluations produced by year in every sector. But then we thought, well, this is not working very well. Because we can have 1,000 and 100 and 1 million evaluations without anything happening to the decision-making process. And then we changed the indicator. In our law frame, our main indicator is about changes in social policy due to the evaluation process. It's more difficult to measure? It is more difficult to measure, I know. But at least we know that the evaluation is about changing things. And we know that if nothing changes, then our mandate is not working. Then our job is not done. And it is amazing how the behavior of the whole institution changed. Because having only finished evaluation was not enough. We had to convince someone to use that indicator. We have to convince the media that this information was important, and therefore, through them, they can convince the policymakers. If nothing changed, our indicator didn't move. Therefore, with that indicator, and we believed in indicators then, the whole process changed. And I just tell you the very last thing we did when I was there in Coneval 2 months ago. We changed dramatically the way we got to public evaluations. So what happens in the beginning, or what's still happening in many places, that you hire an evaluator. There is an evaluation. You even, of course, have the evaluation together with the program from the very beginning to the very end. They know exactly what are you doing. They know, they provide information. They defend themselves. And then you have an evaluation. It's finished. and you make it public. In the Mexican case, what is mandatory is to have all the evaluations public. That is mandatory. So what happens? That a good evaluation doesn't always say good things about the program. It doesn't say only bad things about the program. It has a mixture of things. It says, well, on this point of view, the program was doing well. However, on this other process, the program was not doing well. What happens with the media? They get the worst parts, and they put it on the front page of the newspaper. So, according to Coneval, the program is failing because of this. And then all the work you did with the program together with them, it goes away when the newspaper says that, well, Coneval is crucifying us, and it's crucifying the president, and it's crucifying the minister. So that's a difficult balance, as I said before. How do you balance accountability with the learning part? In fact, in every evaluation, when it's finished, we talk to the highest person we can talk, either the director or the undersecretary, the director. So this is the evaluation, and these are the recommendations. Oh, thank you very much. Then when it goes to the media, then it's a problem. So the big change, and I don't know, I'm sure it's going to help, is now we're trying to public the evaluations together with the response from the program, together with the changes they have been doing on the program due to the evaluation process, and together with their points of view of the programs, of the evaluation. Therefore, the evaluation is about which were the findings, the usual thing, the recommendation, the usual thing, plus what are the programs or the ministries doing to resolve that problem. What are they doing to solve the recommendations? And they have the points of view on the problem. So they may say, well, I don't agree with this evaluation because this is there. It is in the final document. Therefore, when it goes to the media, we believe it's a fair process because the media has what the evaluation said, what the program said, and what is actually happening in solving the problem. So we believe that there are two positive things about that. A, we put emphasis on improving the program. It's not about only saying what is wrong and bad. We are here to improve that, and it's there in the publication. And secondly, somehow, the news don't go to the front page. It's, well, the evaluators said the program was not doing well here. However, they are solving it. It's not good news for them anymore. It's just boring news for the newspaper. So there's a way in which you can, through the evaluation process, try to solve two huge problems. The balance of accountability and learning, and the element of improving. So this part is so important to have it very clear. So my big recommendation for any evaluation unit in the world is to have an indicator of results where you track changes in public policy due to your evaluations. Not an easy task, but a very important one. And then a summary of everything. Last but not least, we didn't have that at the beginning. So we were producing evaluations in the social policy. We evaluate this and that. Well, we didn't have together our mandate. We didn't have at the beginning, as a long run, which were the main goals in the medium and long term. And therefore the evaluation process, it was all right. But at the end of the day, what you say is, when I evaluate program 1, 2, 3, 4, 250, all this together is taking us to improve lives in the long term. And therefore, in the Mexican case, for the past 6 years, we had our main goal for the social policy to reduce multidimensional poverty, which has 7 dimensions: income, education, health, social protection, housing equality, housing basic services, and access to food. This is the way Congress asked us to measure poverty. And therefore, what I said before in the morning is that this gave us a very important and surprise for us virtuous circle, because governors and presidents and ministers were really aware of that indicator, this poverty. Sometimes newspapers may not pay attention on a very small program for women or for children or for men. Sometimes they don't pay attention on small programs. But the media really pays attention to poverty. And when poverty went up in certain states or in the whole country for certain years, then the media paid attention and said, well, the governor of Chiapas is not doing well because poverty went up in the poorest state in Mexico, which is Chiapas. It's even worse now, Chiapas. And therefore, the governors were paying attention politically to that indicator. And as I said in the morning, what happened was that we had in our very small office of evaluation in Mexico City on the 8th floor, governors knocking at the doors, ministers knocking at the doors saying, well, how can we reduce poverty in various dimensions? Do you have any clue, they ask, about which programs are the best to reduce poverty in various dimensions? So the surprising part, because it was a surprise, is that they were asking the results from our evaluation process. And we had to produce different tools, different summary tools, in order to address their issues. So we still have our single evaluations for single programs, but then we have, as we'll see later, policy evaluations. Also, saying that, is it true that the bunch of programs on children, altogether, 11 programs, 15 programs, are they altogether leading us to improvement of children in various dimensions? It may be true that one single evaluation tells us that one single program is working, but the whole together are they working together? Therefore, the criteria of coherence makes sense. The new criteria of OECD makes sense. It's about that program together with that one. Are they helping children to be better off in the future? Or they are contradicting each other. It's very easy to have contradictions in programs because one minister wants to have a similar program than the other minister. And the two together, they don't work. So, of course, in every country, this element is different. Maybe children poverty, maybe children malnutrition. It depends on what type of system we would like to have at the end of the day. It should be that part on the top, such an indicator or very few indicators showing us the way to go in the long run. Not the way to go tomorrow and today, but in the long run, what do we want? Social rights for children, perhaps. Rights for children in general, in every country. So everything we do in terms of children for every program, is it everything together leading us to reduce or to improve that element? Ideally, what we measure here should be attractive for the media. Because then the media pays attention, pushes policymakers to do well in what they do. So this is the Mexican example. And as I said, you can have a different one for your countries as well. One of the questions is, how would you decide how would you design the M&E system in your own country, in your own region? What would you put in here? So what we put here is the log frame for every program, and then the link to the development plan. And then we invested a lot in terms of data on the National Statistic Office and general data collection. Without this element of information being generated continuously, in our case, these other two things don't make sense. We said before, if we had a single impact evaluation, which is an RCT well done, that's fine. But without the rest of the elements, that look like a very nice Ferrari in a town without roads. Looks very nice, but you need a road. Why don't you construct a road first? And then you bring the RCT. Or do it at the same time. Every year, what we do, Chile is doing the same, Colombia is doing the same, have an annual evaluation plan of the different types of evaluations which are here. Impact is here for very few programs. And then we have a range of evaluations. Take a look at the type of tools we have. It doesn't mean that they are the best. It means that these are the type of tools that we've been trying to produce according to different stakeholders, to different moments, and to different political pressures. Perhaps in your country you need something different. Perhaps you need something even better than this. So let's think about the cycle of the program. And let's think about the cycle of a government. In Mexico, we have almost a year with a new government. And of course, the very first tool we planned was to have the new program's initial assessment, el diagnóstico. So the question is, the new government comes and they always bring new programs, that's fine. But the very basic question is that program necessary? Why is that necessary? Did you produce it on the 8th floor of your office without being able to go to the field to test it? So very basic questions about the new program. It's an assessment. It is an evaluation. Is that an evaluation you asked? It might be an evaluation. I don't know. Let's call it assessment to be safe. But we need that. Then we evaluate this evaluation. We have we evaluated the design of the problem. Is the design logical? It makes sense. Is it vertically logical and horizontally logically? I remember like 10 years ago, the new president at the time, Felipe Calderón, released a big, huge program for youth medical. And that program had a lot of budget, and it was the whole in the media, everything. And then we thought, okay, because it's so important, this program, we have to have an impact evaluation of that program and the full other tools for that program. So we had money for the impact evaluation. We thought this was going to last like 2 or 3 years. No. It was quite clear, only from the design evaluation, that this program was not going anywhere. Why? It was so complex for the firms to get the benefit. It was so complex for them that not a single, very few firms were joining the program. Therefore, there were very few beneficiaries. It was very complex, the design. So, luckily, we saved us a huge impact evaluation for that program, because with a different one, with a cheaper evaluation, it was clear that that program didn't go anywhere. And luckily, on that occasion, the Ministry of Finance, they were aware of the findings, and the budget of the program was reduced slowly, and it disappeared eventually. They didn't change the program, it was a pity. They only just disappeared, but at least it was a good decision. So we have various types of evaluations. I wonder how the time is going, because I do have 20 minutes. Okay, excellent. So I would like to walk with you for some of these evaluations, just to see what do you think. Let me just deep a bit in various of these, and let's see how far we get, and let's go with some of them. I want to go back a bit. Well, anyway. Well, so it doesn't matter. The previous what I wanted to show is first is we thought of the cycle of a single program, let's say, and let's say what would be ideally to have as an evaluations for that program in different processes, in different stages. As I said before, the first one is the assessment of the program. In fact, in our evaluation policies, we put that policy in place like 13 years ago, together with the Ministry of Finance. Together with the Ministry of Finance. We thought, especially the guys in finance, thought, well, we should have, for every new program, they should tell us why they are trying to have this new program. That's why the assessment was there, and they thought, in a very naive way, we thought in a very naive way, that in order for the Ministry of Finance to give the budget to that new program, they should have this assessment completed beforehand.
Monitoring evaluation.
If you don't convince me about the needs of the program, I don't give you a budget. Makes sense from the Ministry, from the point of view of the Ministry of Finance. So we do have that mandate. Of course, that doesn't work that well, is it? You cannot tell the president, President, you cannot have your program because someone in the Ministry of Education didn't fill this assessment. And it's easier for us to be kicked from office, Sally and me, as it happened, than not having the budget for the president's new program. So, but at least we do have this assessment. Sometimes, as it happened with the program of your employment, you make the decision sometime later. Not at the beginning. You gave budget to that program. It was not a very good program. You gave the budget. You showed the problem, and then eventually you took the decision to change the program or disappear. It was not at the beginning. It was later. So, assessment, then we have the evaluation, the design evaluation. We have a consistency and results evaluation. We want to know how well programs are prepared to work on a systematic basis. We may have or not an impact evaluation from the very beginning. And we have almost all the time what we call a process evaluation, which is a way of assessing or evaluating the implementation process, sometimes the full process of a new program, or sometimes one specific process of that specific program. Then you have a summary of the evaluation, and then you have in the whole process the monitoring and the evaluation fact sheet, which is just a very small summary of what is going on with the program every single year. Nowadays, we produce that monitoring and evaluation fact sheet, which is only one sheet of paper, every year for 230 programs. It doesn't mean that that fact sheet has always an impact evaluation. It doesn't make sense. It's impossible. It means that we produce this fact sheet for the presidency, the Ministry of Finance, telling them, hey, if you want to know anything about a program, that is what I have. In this case, I have a beautiful impact evaluation and other issues and other tools. In this case, I don't have an impact evaluation. I have a design evaluation. I have programs results indicator for the long framework, and that's it. I don't have more. I don't have neither time nor budget to have for every single program every year the whole range of tools. Doesn't make sense, by the way. And then you have different stakeholders for different tools. In this case, the process evaluation, or sometimes called implementation evaluation, has been very popular for programs themselves. They really want to know from outside, how can they improve their implementation? And they are really eager to go on that evaluation because it is very important for them in the short run. That's very popular for them. Some others are not that popular for the program. They're popular for the Ministry of Finance. They're popular for the Ministry, for the Presidency. They're popular for the media, the stakeholder. So how do you balance all of this at the same time? That's the art we said before. Has a lot of technical stuff, has a lot of political stuff, and has some art. How do you balance all that? All right, so just one minute, and then I will go off on the question. Just one example. The design evaluation. It's an evaluation where the evaluator is face to face with the program all the time, trying to answer specific questions, and it's usually a yes and no answer with some justification in the middle. For instance, is the design of the program written in an institutional document? Or is in the head of someone only? If it's in the head of someone, then perhaps this program is kind of weak. If it's something written, then we may believe that the design may have some elements there. So it's a yes and no answer with justification in the middle. We took this from a system called PARTS in the USA. We changed it a bit, and it has been very useful because it is not a very expensive evaluation, and we can do it sometimes very quick. So in every of these evaluations, we will have a process. I'll be happy to answer questions here today, another day, about the various types. The most important thing is, this is just an example of what happened on that place, on that region, at that very moment. Perhaps in your country, you need something different. And then we have questions.
Hi, my name is Urs. I'm with UNICEF Regional Office in Eastern and Southern Africa. One thing that struck me most about your presentation is, in a way, how integrated, or how, in talking about evaluations and evaluation systems, it's key to integrate evaluation with the planning and the monitoring side. And I think we very often, as evaluation buffs, kind of coming into the evaluation agenda, are talking a lot about evaluation demand, supply, and so on, but we kind of leave out that whole part on P&M. And I'm just kind of wondering, from your experience as a, in a sense, champion of evaluation in Mexico, Coneval, how much of your time did you spend advocating for better planning, better monitoring?
A lot. So the very first, we started, Progresa started with an impact evaluation 20 years ago. It was a huge, nice evaluation, blah, blah, blah. When we started, not from Honor, when we started from the Ministry of Social Development, one single ministry, we started with the planning process. We knew that trying to have an impact evaluation we had at the time 15 programs in Sevesol, 15, 17 programs. Even for 15 programs, some small, some it was going to be very difficult to have an impact evaluation for all of them. So we prefer to spend a lot of time with the programs, with the ministry, with other ministry, trying to say, well, this is about results. At the end of the day, you, program manager, will be better off if you tell the taxpayers, not that you spend their money, but that you actually reduce anemia through a fortified milk program. If you're able to do that yourself, I mean, so we may not do that because we as an evaluators. If you think that you have to be accountable, trying to prove that you improve people's lives, then you'll have something important for you, for your program. So the whole thing, we spent so many hours in UEVA in trying to convince policymakers to produce very nice block frameworks with very nice results indicators. Because we thought, and it's partly true, that a good part of the evidence process will come from that place. And of course, then at the same time, we place some time in trying to have all these evaluations I mentioned before, including the evaluation of indicators. Is the indicator well? Is it clear? Well, all that is an evaluation of the indicator itself. So we spent so many hours doing that. So many hours doing it. And in fact, the decision made by the Minister of Finance, unlike in Chile, is that the Ministry of Finance decided to have as a mandatory a log frame for all programs in the whole federal government. In the case of Chile, they started very slowly. They prefer the Ministry of Finance, the big bang approach. Mixing results in both. Very interesting approach.
Bill from the regional office in Geneva. Again, on this issue, picking up on the conversation first, is about we, UNICEF, and how we add value to that. So we as evaluation staff, maybe the Ministry of the Ministry of Planning and Finance, or whatever the configuration is an obvious counterpart for looking at whether, in general, national strategies, national policies have indicators, have frameworks. But in truth, much of the work that we do is bilaterally through the sectors. So our head of health works with the Ministry of Health, head of education, which means it's very important for us to be working not only as evaluators in evaluation, but hand in hand with the colleagues in UNICEF who work on the sectoral areas, I think. The other thing on the different typologies of evaluation, evaluation theory draws heavily on epidemiology. And we would never have a new drug and deliver it to millions of people and then do an impact evaluation. So I think maybe to unpack a little bit when it's appropriate, and I realize we live in not in a perfect world, but when is it appropriate to do an impact evaluation? Because I hear lots of people going on about, the impact evaluations of thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people. We should not be doing an impact evaluation when we rolled something out nationally. This is when we're testing proof of concept. That we should be doing that kind of impact assessment. Does this, on a micro level, does this deliver? And then arguing for scale up. But somehow, I think there's this idea that we're going to do impact evaluations on national programs. You have to, going back to your presentation, ask why were millions and millions of dollars spent on youth
employment?
Why didn't we catch it earlier before it was going to scale?
Such an important question, such a difficult question, such a difficult answer, because so every year we struggle with limited resources in what types of evolution we have in different programs. And I can give you so many answers on that. Let's go for the bigger programs and try to show evaluation or an impact evaluation on those very expensive ones. That's an obvious candidate for an impact evaluation. If there is no political willingness from the director of that program, you can spend 10 years trying to have that impact evaluation without any success. Therefore, the other one is let's go to the low-hanging fruits. And let me tell you, on a strategic point of view, if we would like to have an ongoing evaluation system in the medium and long run, if it's not only one single evaluation, we want to go for the full system at the end of the day. I will start with the low-hanging fruits in programs who are willing to be evaluated, and in programs where when you have probably good results. So imagine, let me go back to Sully. Imagine Sully is telling the president of Ghana this wonderful tool showing that the first program he evaluated is not working. So the president will, why are you selling me this program, So you're telling me that you have a device to show to everyone that my program is not working. No, thank you very much. I don't want that. I don't want that system. I don't want that tool. I don't want that anything at all to anything. So if you start with a good program, then I think it's tempting to go farther. If you balance incentives, is there every year we have in Mexico an annual award for evaluation processes. You cannot imagine how happy ministers and governors are to receive an award from Coneval, telling them not that the program is good, that their impact evaluation on that program was very good. The media is there. They have, not a medal, it's like it is amazing that they are happy to receive an award not on the performance of the program, but on their evaluation process. So we invented that award trying to increase the benefits of evaluation. We have many costs, potential costs. Let's increase the benefits. And that, I think, was a good idea, don't you think? And I'm asking Eva because
there is
I think
we have a question there, and then that side of the room.
Can I add something?
My name is Tichi Zomo and I'm from Bhutan Country Office. I actually have a small comment, not really a question, but I wanted to learn because the slide on the M&E system, the whole cycle of setting up an M&E system. From our experience, we have experiences like when you have to set up a new system, it's fairly easy to follow the cycle. But when you already have an existing M&E system, then the challenges begins. So from your experience, I don't know, should we have two approaches or we just try to keep one? So when we talk about approaches.
so when you have already an M&E system, there's both ways. It's a good thing because you are there already. If you try to change something, there's an issue because you have people working there on that. What I would do is I would go to one specific process and try to change that there, not the whole thing. So let's say, let's try to improve the way, let's try to improve a mechanism for decision making. Let's try to produce a follow-up mechanism. But let's focus on that and bring, of course, all the stakeholders on that process and try to improve that single process. I find it difficult always, as always, to try to change the whole thing at the same time due to the political problems of having all these people working there for some years ago. And we're doing fine. Well, yeah, that's quite natural. I would go for a single bullet, let's say, and of course with many people engaged and involved, I'm happy to do that on that single process. That single process.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I think there are a lot of questions. Unfortunately, we have to cut here the discussion. Gonzalo is going to be here around for 1 more hour.
more.
More than 1 hour. So if you can get him during lunchtime and further discuss, it's great. I think you have inspired us and you have
or confuse you.
so it's part of the process. We can get an award for that. And it's great to have you, and thank you very much for attending to this very interesting discussion.
Yes. Thanks so much, Gonzalo. I saw many hands up. To assure you that the discussion is not over on this issue. It's not over. We will find a way of engaging on this issue. Personally, I'm interested in the other examples of the types as well. He put forward one on design. I'm interested in the way it's going to configure the one on the diagnostics. I'm interested in the one that's going to look at the consistency in results, and the one that's going to look at on process. I think the notion of process we do that a lot, but I'm interested in that and so on. And I'm interested in the details. I think the first two sort of are looking at the ex ante issue that is to be raised in the morning. I'm interested in that as well. So the process is not over, and perhaps it answers the question that was asked in the morning about the types as well. So I think we would like to for those who work at the country office level. I think this kind of discussion is most relevant. At the corporate level, I think our scope might be limited for some of these. But at the country level, where the bulk of the work is done, with partners, I think we need to explore some more. So I can assure you that we will be in touch with Gonzalo and see about the next steps from here. I can see today he's been raising his hand.
Yeah.
So let's take it.
Presentation.
The original.
I leave the presentation here, so the presentation will be here.
Yeah.
And the original plan in the program that was circulated was to have the two of us in one clinic, where Gonzalo was going to look at the framework and the approaches, and I would look at the emerging demands for country-led evaluation, at least on the African continent. So, in the split of times, the first part was shortchanged. My offer to my dear friend is that he has 30 minutes or maybe 15 minutes of my session later in the afternoon.
Thank you.
He can complete answering the questions.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's a friend.
Yes, he's a true friend. He's a true friend, and
Or he can have the whole time.
and to be transparent about why we ended up splitting it. It was a last minute decision. We had also invited Claudia to go into some of the tools about the more immediate way of answering policy questions, and she was ready to engage us because she's done it across countries. Unfortunately, she had to cancel the trip at the very last moment due to an issue that she couldn't defer. It was a personal issue. So you will miss that part. Those who saw the earlier draft, that part is also a question that many of you are asking. What are the tools if you want to send things around in a more responsive, in a more timely way, in a credible way, and it's been done across many functions. So we'll find opportunity to do that another time. But thanks, Sule. So once again, thanks, Gonzalo. Continue in the afternoon with Sule. But for now, it's time for lunch and for a very important session. It's a book launch. Rarely do we have the opportunity to receive the authors of a book, to explain the thinking in the book, and I have the book here. I have underlined many parts which I'll read to you. And to have people in our community sharing out their experiences in material, and that we can all digest. So I suggest that you grab a quick lunch whilst we arrange the panel here, and come and join that session. We will give you, you're just grabbing the lunch, isn't it? So grab the lunch in 15 minutes.